There is a type of silence that doesn't feel empty. It lingers. It holds something, not loud enough to interrupt you, but present enough that you eventually see it. And when you do, you realize your cat is observing you. Not asking, not moving, not reacting, just watching. In this video, you will see why that moment is not as simple as it looks, why it tends to happen when nothing else seems important, and what your cat is actually doing in that quiet, unmoving period between actions. The stillness that isn't empty. From a human perspective, stillness often means that nothing is happening. It feels like a pause in activity, a gap between meaningful times. We tend to associate movement with intention and sound with significance, so when both are missing, we assume there is nothing to interpret. But for a cat, stillness does not mean absence. It means concentration. It is a state where attention is not scattered or reactive, but focused and steady. When a cat watches you without moving, it is not disengaged from the moment. It is fully inside it. What looks like inactivity is actually a form of presence that humans rarely maintain. The cat is not waiting for something to happen. It is already engaged in what is happening, even if that engagement is quiet and almost invisible. And this difference in perception is where misunderstanding begins. Humans often overlook these moments because they do not fit into the usual signals of interaction. But for a cat, this is not the absence of interaction. It is simply a quieter form of it. How cats observe differently. Humans rely heavily on explanation. We break the world into categories, assign meaning through language, and often wait for something to be clearly stated before we fully understand it. Even emotions are often processed after they are spoken. Cats operate in a completely different way. They do not wait for clarity in the human sense. They do not need words, labels, or structured explanations. Instead, they observe patterns, a slight hesitation before you stand up, the way your breathing changes when your attention shifts, the subtle difference between relaxed movement and distracted movement. These details are not secondary to a cat. They are the primary source of information. And when a cat watches you in silence, it is not analyzing you logically. It is absorbing a pattern. It is aligning what it sees now with everything it has seen before, forming a continuous understanding that does not require conscious thought. You are part of their environment. To a human, the environment is often something external. It is the space we move through, the objects around us, the physical layout of a room. We see ourselves as separate from it. But for a cat, this separation does not exist in the same way. The environment is not just the space. It is the feeling of the space, and you are part of that feeling. Your movements, your energy, your level of attention, all of these contribute to how the environment is perceived. When a cat watches you, it is not focusing on you as an isolated subject. It is observing how the environment shifts through you. Are you calm or unsettled? Predictable or inconsistent? Focused or distracted? These are not questions asked consciously, but they are continuously answered through observation. Over time, your presence becomes a pattern within the cat's world, and that pattern plays a role in how safe or stable that world feels. The moments you don't notice. Cats often choose to watch most closely when humans are least aware of themselves. These are the moments when your attention is somewhere else, when you are scrolling, thinking, or simply existing without intention. In these moments, your behavior becomes unfiltered. You are not reacting to anything specific, and you are not presenting yourself in any deliberate way. You are simply moving through your own internal rhythm. For a cat, this is valuable. It is when the most honest patterns appear. Not the reactions you give when something happens, but the baseline of how you exist when nothing demands your attention. And it is during these quiet, unnoticed moments that the cat gathers information most efficiently, without interruption, without noise, without distraction. Not curiosity, but calibration. It is easy to interpret a cat's gaze as curiosity, and sometimes it is. But more often, it goes beyond simple curiosity. What appears as curiosity is often a form of calibration. A cat is constantly adjusting its internal understanding of its environment. It is checking for consistency, looking for changes, and refining its sense of what is stable and what is not. When your cat watches you, it is not just asking, "What are you doing?" It is asking something deeper without words. Is everything the same as before? Is there something different today? Does this still feel safe? These questions are not conscious, but they are present in the process. And because you are a central part of the environment, your behavior becomes one of the main reference points for that calibration. Why silence matters. Silence creates clarity. Without noise or movement, smaller details become easier to notice. For a cat, this matters. Their perception is built around subtle shifts, tiny changes that might go completely unnoticed in a louder, more active environment. When everything is quiet, those subtle changes stand out. A slight movement becomes more visible. A small shift in posture becomes more meaningful. This is why silence often accompanies these moments of observation. It is not just a background condition. It is part of what allows the observation to happen more deeply. In silence, the cat does not need to filter out distractions. It can focus entirely on what is in front of it. Subtle pause. If you have ever noticed your cat watching you like this and felt like there was something more behind it, you were probably right. And if you want to continue exploring these quiet behaviors that are often overlooked, you can subscribe, not for quick answers, but for a deeper way of understanding what is already happening around you. When observation becomes connection, observation over time becomes familiarity, and familiarity slowly turns into something else. Trust. A cat that watches you often is not distant or disconnected. It is building a consistent understanding of you. Your movements become predictable. Your presence becomes stable. Your patterns become familiar. And through this repetition, the cat begins to relax within your presence. Not because you actively did something, but because you remained consistent. This is how connection forms in a way that is quiet and gradual. There is no single moment where it begins. Instead, it develops through repeated exposure to the same patterns, the same signals, the same sense of stability. The silent gaze in this context is not just observation. It is part of the process that leads to trust. And once that trust is established, the cat's behavior begins to change in subtle ways. Moving closer, staying longer, resting more easily. All of it built on moments that seemed, at first, like nothing at all. Why it feels so personal. There is a reason these moments stand out. Because they feel directed. A cat is not randomly scanning the room. It is choosing to look at you, and that choice creates a sense of focus that is difficult to ignore. Even without human intention behind it, the effect feels personal. It feels like attention. And attention, when it is steady and uninterrupted, naturally creates a sense of connection. This is why being watched by a cat can feel different from being observed in other ways. It is not loud or demanding. It does not ask for interaction. What most people misunderstand. Many people assume that if a cat is not actively interacting, then nothing meaningful is happening. That interaction must involve movement, sound, or direct engagement. But with cats, meaning often exists without visible action. A silent gaze can carry more information than an obvious reaction, because it is not driven by immediate stimuli. It is shaped by observation and accumulation. When a cat reacts, it is responding to something that has already been processed. But when it watches, it is still in the process of understanding. And that process is where most of the depth exists. Ignoring these moments means overlooking a large part of how cats actually experience the world. Because what is quiet is not empty, and what is still is not inactive. The quiet that speaks. So the next time your cat watches you in silence, pause for a moment, not to interrupt it, not to question it, just to notice it, because in that stillness, something is happening. A form of attention that does not need words. A form of connection that does not demand anything in return. Just quiet awareness, meeting quiet presence. And in a world that is often loud and fast, that kind of silence is not empty at all.